Well, how do you say your surname again? Is it Mokgohloa?
No.
Good evening. Welcome to the Private Property Farming Podcast. My name is Mbali Nwoko, and thank you so much for joining us on this cold Thursday evening. If it's your first time watching this show, welcome, and thank you for choosing the Private Property family. We have over 60 episodes on our YouTube channel that you could catch up on all the agri content. And if you are regular onto the show, thank you once again for choosing us every Tuesday and Thursdays, and for supporting the podcast, as well as the guests that we bring on every night to give you information that you would like to know with regards to your farming needs. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, a hydroponic cucumber farmer, and we're just going to be exploring or unpacking his operation, how he started, why he decided to farm cucumbers, and just how the market looks like when it comes to cucumbers. And we're joined by none other than Kobela Mokgohloa. Thank you so much for joining us, Kobela. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mbali. It's a bit chilly, but all is well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I know you're a very busy individual, very, very busy farmer. I mean, you were just saying right now you're back from the market. Maybe let's just start there. Like, how are the markets performing these days?
Yeah, look, it's a bit tricky because normally cucumber prices go very high at this time of the year because a lot of farmers go out of season. And you sort of have to know the tricks on how to be in season this time of the year. But it's getting tricky. And because, we've been at it for such a long time, we know the ins and outs. But yeah, the markets are slowly picking up. We starting to see very good prices, very good returns. It's just, trickling in very slow.
Yeah. But for those of the audience watching at home tonight that don't know who Kobela is, maybe just give us a brief background of who Kobela is, your name, the name of your farm, and just when did you start farming?
Oh, I mean, I started farming 14 years ago. So I've paid my school fees in the business. But I mean, I'm one of the directors and founder of Korema Farms, and we've been growing cucumbers for quite a while now. Obviously, initially we started off with a lot of different crops, and up until we decided we want to stick to one crop and specialize. So yeah, that's pretty much who I am. In a nutshell, there's so many other things that I'm all about outside of farming, also within farming. But I think for the purpose of the podcast, let's stick to who I am within farming.
Yeah, awesome. So you said you started with a number of crops. What type of crops were those, and what What made you decide to focus now on cucumbers?
Yeah, look, I mean, one of the other things that made us sort of search from one crop to the next was trying to find the most profitable one, which is obviously the worst decision to make because you never know what the markets are going to do. But, we did all sorts of crops from tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, brinjal, and up until we just decided to stick with cucumbers because of the support that we got from the seed company. And just understanding the crop made it very easy for us to sort of get our hands onto it. So yeah, that's pretty much what we decided on. So there was nothing in particular that said, look, you must do cucumbers. And it was just pretty much sort of an instinct that said, look, let's stick to one crop.
put my picture, right? Ooh, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the connection. I mean, we've just been load shedded in my end, and I hope that wasn't too much of a disruption from you guys. But nevertheless, let's just continue with today's show. Kobela, I was just asking you that we're maybe talking on the point of you having to start with various crops. And then you decide to use cucumber.
Okay. Yeah, the line is not so good in Bali.
What type of crops were you farming before you? Hi, Kobela, can you hear me?
Yes, much better, much better. Stay where you are. Now that's better. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Bali, you want to repeat the question, please?
Sure. I was asking you, what type of crops did you farm before you decided to focus on cucumbers specifically? And why did you come to the decision to focus on cucumbers?
Yeah, look, it's nothing scientific. I mean, after having tried a few crops, tomatoes, peppers, we just decided that, look, we were very comfortable with cucumbers. I mean, initially we were driven by what the market wanted, and of course the market prices. It was a big determining factor. But because of we sell it on an open market and the prices are just very volatile, that was not a good indication for us to stick to one particular product at that particular time. So we just decided to stick with cucumbers, and whether high or low on prices, we just went with it.
Yeah. So what made you also decide to focus on hydroponic farming? Why didn't
Bali, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's the question again?
So what made you decide to focus on hydroponic farming and not farm directly in the soil?
Yeah, look, I mean, hydroponics just gives us high yields. We're able to control the crop the way we want to. So if I want more mediums on a cucumber, I can pretty much manipulate the crop and so forth. So I think we have more control over the cucumber on the crop than having to go into the soil. The other thing is that initially when we started, the farm was only 4 hectares in size. So we needed to make it worthwhile before we then decided to expand and buy out our neighbors and so forth. So we were forced to go into a route that needed to make us profitable. And one of the ways was to go hydroponics. So it wasn't by choice. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. And the term hydroponics sounds so fancy and very much so expensive. Were there stakeholders in the early years when you started the hydroponic farm that supported Korema farms from a technical advisory perspective, agronomy perspective, or did you just have to figure out things along the way yourself?
Look, a lot of it was through assistance from many people, and I mean in different technical aspects. Just the setting up of an hydroponics farm is a lot of money, and it requires a lot of technical expertise. So for us, we decided to do a lot of the work ourselves, and that meant consulting a lot of people in many areas. Engineering being one of them, because we wanted to get our own design. So yeah, it is a very expensive exercise to start. But I can't say I figured it out by myself. There was a lot of people that played a major role in making us who we are today.
Okay, awesome. And with regards to the markets, Kobela, do clients really have what do they have an interest to know whether you're growing the crop hydroponically or not? And does it make a slight price difference if you're growing the crop hydroponically or not? So basically what I'm trying to ask, what are the benefits of hydroponic farming, especially when you consider things like markets?
Yeah. Look, I mean, clients want a long shelf life, and hydroponics gives you that advantage that the produce will last way longer than if it is grown in the soil. So at the moment, customers identify that, it then gives the product more value, and you're able to sell it for way more than someone who's not doing hydroponics. So to some extent, yes, they do care, but I can say to a large extent, it doesn't really matter, especially in the business of fresh produce, where you're expected to eat a cucumber for a day or two and come back again and buy the next one. So it gives you a competitive advantage initially, but after some time, that no longer becomes a competitive advantage.
Okay. And so maybe just give us a brief breakdown on the seasons of cucumbers. I mean, you are based in Winterveld in Pretoria, and if you had to farm cucumbers hydroponically, what's the best season to start the production? How long does it take from a seedling to harvest? And what are the things to look out for when farming cucumbers hydroponically from a pest or disease element?
Yeah. So yeah, you rightfully said we are out in Winterveld. Yes. And generally it's a warm area. So cucumbers prefer the tropical climate, nice and warm. So people out in KZN will do very well growing cucumbers because that's pretty much the climate that it prefers. But nice and warm, an ideal time to start, it's in the summer because it's generally a summer crop. So, I mean, we just add artificial heating, or many farmers do artificial heating to augment the cold because it obviously doesn't like the cold. So ideally, you want to start growing cucumbers in the summer, just especially if you're a beginner. What to look out for? I mean, it's generally a crop that grows very quick. So if you put in the seed today, 49 days later, you'll have your first fruit. So it grows very quick. And one of the things people don't necessarily or actually underestimate is the fact that the rate that it grows. So in most cases, a lot of farmers that are starting off planting cucumbers are ill prepared in a sense that from a labor perspective, they just don't have enough labor to sort of manage the crop, and they are so excited that it grows so fast. So yeah, it does become a bit of a challenge. But I mean, as far as pests are concerned, yeah, powdery mildew is still one of our biggest problems. Red spider mite, and I mean, we are still yet to see varieties that can sort of have that resistance on those crops. But I know many farmers will call me and say that that's obviously due to poor farming practices. But I can assure you, even the best farmers experience powdery mildew and red spider mite. It's just one of our biggest headaches, irrespective of how long you've been doing it. It's just a problem,
Right. And what does powdery mildew and red spider mite do to your cucumber production? Does it shorten the cucumber itself, the fruit? Does it stunt the growth of the plant? What does it do?
It pretty much slows down your production. So it's like an athlete with a cough. So they can't perform optimally. So ideally, you don't want such diseases on your crop. Similar to an athlete, they just don't want to have a flu. Talking about flu, it's comrade season. We were meant to be running comrades this year or this month. So no one wants a flu. So powdery mildew pretty much will slow you down in terms of having to harvest the required amount of fruits for you to be profitable.
And tapping into the markets, Kobela, what type of clients, prefer to buy cucumbers? I mean, we've got an array of markets: informal, formal, retail, wholesalers, restaurants, catering companies. And, when I think of cucumbers, immediately I'm thinking of eating a cucumber in a salad. So what type of markets or customers really have a desire or strong need for cucumbers based on your experience?
Difficult to say, Mbali. Over the years, it was known to be a crop eaten by your 5-6 LSMs, but we have seen a gradual change of people even in the lowest LSMs sort of having the urge to sort of have cucumber on their shelves or in their fridges. So it's very difficult to say. Especially as we're in the wholesale business, so we don't really want to understand, or not necessarily want to understand, but I mean, the direct client is it's not in our business structure. So we do wholesale. It just, but I mean, understanding what the client wants is obviously one of the priorities in our business, but it's very difficult to pinpoint it to say it's people in this particular LSMs. It's just changed over the years.
Yeah. And talking about people, LSMs and wholesalers, how did COVID have an impact on your business? You are farming a very niche product. During COVID, a lot of farmers who are doing like cherry tomatoes and herbs say they struggled a lot because they went and focused on a specific crop or a crop niche group, and the restaurants closed, etc. With you in Korema Farms focusing on cucumbers, were you impacted, and was there need to maybe look at a different crop to plant that is more of a cash crop that was in demand during that time, or not?
Yeah, look, I mean, so the wheel in the agricultural space turns very slow. So because it's a commodity, people must eat. So you sort of start to realize what to cut out when pockets become really, really tight. And we started seeing that buying power started slowing down. Later in almost 2020, almost later in the year. That's pretty much when COVID was almost on the second wave, so to speak. So that's when we started seeing a pretty much a decline in the buying power, and people really started buying essentials. So, you have a discussion around, should I buy maize meal or should I buy cucumbers? So it became difficult to that extent. But, to a large extent, people also wanted to become healthy throughout, COVID. Even now, people still want to maintain a good health. So a part of doing that is having a good cucumber. So it doesn't really affect us that much. I mean, we can talk about January becoming a horrible month for most farmers because the buying power is generally low. But we've seen over the years, people want to lose weight at that particular time. So it's become very difficult to say. Sometimes we just have this ostrich effect of just putting your head in the sand and just farming and hoping for the best. So it only started really affecting us when the buying power started becoming very low, and we saw the government sort of giving out stimulus packages of this and that, trying to sort of augment what the economy is going through. And that really helped us a bit because people then started having the confidence of having to buy even the so-called non-essentials.
Thank you so much, Kobela, for just really availing your time and being so patient with my network disruption / lockdown. ISCOM, load shedding. But just the last question that I want to ask you is, what tips or advice would you give to an aspirant farmer, or just a farmer maybe who wants to convert his or her production into hydroponic? What are some of the tips that you could give? And just basically based on your experience.
Yeah, I think the best advice I would give to any aspiring cucumber or hydroponics farmer is try and get as much information as possible before you sort of invest. You have this infrastructure that is costing you a lot of money that you can't throw away because it's just the startup costs are just so expensive. So before you invest a lot of money into hydroponics, do as much as research as possible. Visit a few farmers who are doing it, who've been doing it for a while, so that you just get a sense on how things work and just some of the basics that is required to have a successful hydroponics farm.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I wish you all the best with your production. And you did say in the beginning that you were back from the market, so I hope tomorrow's sales will be good. And thank you for coming on to the podcast, Kobela.
Yeah. One of the things in Bali we don't control is the sales because we're working in an open market. But, the things that we can control is the produce. And I can guarantee you that it is out there ready for the customer. And that's pretty much what we have in control.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you for your time and your insights this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Private Property Farming Podcast. Apologies, you can't see my face. It's a bit strange, having to do the podcast without any visuals. But I hope tonight's conversation was informative, was insightful. We had Kobela from Korema Farms. He's based in Winterveld, farming cucumbers on a hydroponic scale. So if you missed tonight's conversation, please watch it on our YouTube channel. Share it with anybody who has an interest in farming. Tell your friends to tell their friends, and keep supporting the Farming Podcast. And I will see you next week, Tuesday. Hopefully we won't have any interruptions, but take care and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.